Your garage is not a storage closet. It is a command center. And right now, for most American families, it is completely unprepared. If you are watching this on television, a quick note before we begin: search for this channel and subscribe if you can. Sharing this video with someone who cares about their family's safety is one of the best ways you can help us grow and keep making content like this. It takes only a moment, and it genuinely matters for the future of this channel. Most people think of their garage as the place where things get piled, where old furniture waits, where sports equipment gets forgotten, where boxes from the last move never quite got unpacked. But during a blackout, the garage becomes something else entirely. It becomes the first room that fails you. And then, if you prepared correctly, it becomes the one room that keeps the rest of the house functioning. The U.S. Energy Information Administration released data in late 2025, showing that Americans lost more power in 2024 than in any year in the previous decade. Outages caused by major events averaged nearly 9 hours per customer across the country. South Carolina alone averaged 53 hours without electricity in 2024. When Hurricane Helene struck in late September, roughly 6 million customers across the Southeast lost power. Thousands of people in western North Carolina were still without electricity more than 2 weeks later. Some rural cooperative customers were told service could be weeks away because in those areas the electrical grid was not being repaired. It was being rebuilt from the ground up. That is what happened to real American families in 2024. And in most of those households, the garage was the first room that stopped working and the last room anyone had thought to prepare. This is a countdown of 10 things your garage should have before the next blackout. These are not luxury items. Most are inexpensive. Some are things you already own but never organized with this purpose in mind. And a few will surprise you because they are not what most people picture when they hear the words emergency preparedness. By the time we reach number 1, you will understand that the most important thing your garage can hold during a blackout is not a piece of equipment at all. Number 10 is a manual release cord you have actually tested. This sounds so obvious that most people assume they do not need to think about it. But here is what happens every time a major blackout hits. The power goes out, the opener stops working, and someone needs to get the car out. They reach up for the red emergency release cord, pull it, and the door does one of 3 things. It opens smoothly. It opens a few inches and stops because the spring tension has degraded and the door is heavier than anyone realized. Or it does not move at all because the torsion spring above the door broke months ago and nobody noticed because the opener was carrying the entire load. During the 2017 hurricane season, residents across Texas and Florida who needed to evacuate found themselves unable to get their cars out because garage doors that had never been manually tested were either stuck or structurally compromised. The manual release cord exists on every automatic opener in the country, but a significant number of homeowners have never actually pulled it. A properly balanced garage door can be lifted with one hand because the torsion springs handle most of the weight. An unbalanced door, or one with a broken spring, may weigh 200 pounds or more once you disconnect the trolley. And once you pull that cord, the door is no longer secured against intruders. Automatic openers lock doors as a secondary function. Manual mode provides none of the protection. Test the cord now while the power is on. If the door fights you, have a technician inspect the springs before the next storm season. This takes 30 minutes and costs almost nothing. Number 9 is a surge protector on your garage door opener's outlet. Most people know surge protectors matter for televisions and computers. Far fewer know that the voltage spike when electricity returns after an outage is one of the leading causes of garage door opener logic board failure. The logic board controls every function of the device, remembers your remote codes, communicates with the keypad, and manages the auto-reverse safety sensors. It can be destroyed in a fraction of a second. In Texas, which ranks among the states with the highest annual outage hours, garage door opener damage from post-storm surge events is a regular repair call for technicians. Replacing a fried logic board can run $150 to $300. More often, the damage makes the entire unit uneconomical to fix, meaning a surge lasting less than 1 second results in a replacement job, costing $400 or more. A surge protector for the single outlet powering a garage door opener costs under $15. It is the easiest ratio of cost to protection in household preparedness. Number 8 is a carbon monoxide detector with battery backup. This is the item on this list that will save a life. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is unambiguous on the numbers. More than 500 Americans die every year from carbon monoxide produced by generators, grills, and other fuel-burning devices. More than 20,000 people visit emergency rooms annually from non-fatal exposure. The Consumer Product Safety Commission has determined that portable generators are associated with roughly 40% of all carbon monoxide deaths linked to consumer products since 2009. The reason the garage sits at the center of this danger is straightforward. When the power goes out and a family pulls out a generator, they want to use it but do not want it stolen. They do not want to run long extension cords through the rain. They assume that cracking the garage door open a foot will let enough air in to make the space safe. The CDC is direct about this. It is not safe. A partially open garage door does not provide enough ventilation to prevent lethal carbon monoxide buildup from a generator running inside. The gas is colorless and odorless. The first symptoms, including dizziness, weakness, and nausea, are easy to confuse with dehydration or the general exhaustion of a long blackout. By the time someone recognizes what is happening, they may already be too impaired to act. The CPSC recommendation is at least 20 feet of clearance from the home, with the exhaust pointed away from the structure. Outside, not the garage, not the covered porch, not the carport. And it matters beyond generators. A car left running in an attached garage to provide warmth or charge a phone can produce dangerous carbon monoxide concentrations even with the garage door open. According to the CDC, a carbon monoxide detector with battery backup, positioned near the garage entry and near sleeping areas inside the home, is one of the least expensive and most important additions to any household. Many homes have smoke detectors, but not carbon monoxide detectors, or combination units with dead batteries. Verify your detectors are functional before the next weather threat arrives. Number 7 is a battery-powered work light or LED lantern sized for your garage. Flashlights are useful during a blackout, but they require someone to hold them, illuminate only in one direction, and make any two-handed task significantly harder. A garage without ambient light is a frustrating and potentially dangerous workspace, and most people do not realize how much they rely on their overhead shop lights until those lights go out. A good LED lantern can illuminate a wide section of a garage for hours or days on a single set of batteries depending on the brightness setting. The best units use rechargeable lithium batteries that hold a charge for months in storage, or standard D-cell batteries that have long shelf lives and are available almost everywhere. Cost is under $20 for a reliable unit. This matters specifically in the garage because most of the tasks that become urgent during a blackout happen there. Locating tools, setting up a generator or portable power station, accessing stored emergency supplies, working on a vehicle. In December 2022, when Winter Storm Elliott stripped power from more than 1.5 million customers across Tennessee, West Virginia, Arkansas, and several other states, many families retrieving emergency equipment found themselves fumbling through dark, cluttered garages with phone flashlights draining their battery. A $20 lantern hanging from a hook prevents all of that. Keep at minimum one work lantern in a dedicated, accessible spot in the garage. Position it where you can reach it in the dark, because that is when you will need it. Test the batteries on the same schedule you test your smoke detectors. Number 6 is a hand crank or battery-powered no-way weather radio. People assume their phones will handle emergency communication during a blackout. During a short outage, they usually do. During an extended one, the situation changes. Cell towers require power to operate. Most towers have backup generators or batteries, But those reserves are not unlimited. The Federal Communications Commission has documented that cell network congestion during major disasters makes calls and data connections unreliable or impossible for extended periods, because every person in the affected area is attempting to use the same network simultaneously. During Hurricane Helene in September 2024, communities in western North Carolina lost cell service for days. At the same time, they lost electricity. Roads washed out. Internet was unavailable. For those families, a battery or hand crank-powered NOAA weather radio was the only source of reliable information about shelter locations, road closures, and any timeline for restoration. Without one, families were making critical decisions about whether to shelter or evacuate based on incomplete information passed from neighbor to neighbor. A NOAA weather radio operates on dedicated frequencies, broadcast by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration using hardened transmitters with their own backup power. The broadcasts continue during major disasters. Some models receive same alerts, which are county-specific emergency notifications rather than wide area warnings. Quality units cost between $25 and $50. Hand crank models generate power without any batteries at all, though most people use them in combination with standard batteries for longer runtime. Know your local NOAA frequency before the next storm season arrives. Number 5 is sealed, waterproof containers with a basic set of hand tools. Most garages have tools. Almost nobody organizes those tools with a blackout in mind. Here is what that oversight looks like in practice. The power goes out. You need to secure a loose board or board up a window. Your power drill is in the garage, but without electricity, the battery charger is useless. Your manual screwdrivers are in a drawer under other items. Your handsaw is behind the lawnmower. None of these things are accessible in a way that allows you to work efficiently without power and without adequate light. FEMA and the American Red Cross both identify basic hand tool access as part of home emergency preparedness, because small structural repairs and utility management become urgent during and after major storms. Finding specific tools in a dark, cluttered garage under stress is far harder than it sounds. A sealed, waterproof container with a focused set of hand tools, including a multi-tool, a manual screwdriver set, a handsaw, pliers, an adjustable wrench, and a utility knife, keeps those tools functional and findable. The waterproof aspect matters because garages in flood-prone areas take on water during major events. During Hurricane Ian in 2022, which left over 2.6 million customers in Florida without power, garages in low-lying areas of the Fort Myers and Cape Coral region flooded. Tools on open shelving or in cardboard boxes were damaged or lost. A sealed container at a higher shelf position survives that. Make sure the tools to operate your utility shutoffs are in that container. If your main water shutoff requires a specific wrench size, that wrench belongs in the emergency kit, not in a random drawer across the garage. Number 4 is at least 5 gallons of stored properly rotated fuel. Most families do not maintain stored fuel, and the reason is understandable. Gasoline degrades in roughly 30 to 60 days without a fuel stabilizer additive. Storing it improperly is a fire hazard. And during normal times, a gas station is never more than a few miles away. But here is what happens to gas stations during a major blackout. The pumps stop working. Gasoline pumps are electric. They require grid power or a station-level generator, and not every station has one. During Hurricane Harvey in 2017, which devastated the Houston area, gas stations across the region either ran out of fuel or were unable to pump what they had because of power failures. Lines stretched for hours at the few stations that remained functional. The same scenario played out across Southwest Florida when Hurricane Ian struck in 2022. People who needed to run a generator, operate a chainsaw to clear fallen trees, or simply evacuate found themselves with empty tanks and very few options. 5 gallons of properly stored fuel will run most portable generators for several hours. Add a fuel stabilizer before storage. Label the container with the fill date and rotate the fuel every 3 to 6 months by using it in lawn equipment and refilling fresh. Store it away from heat sources, away from any open flame, and secured in an upright position. Many local fire codes specify that residential indoor fuel storage should not exceed 5 gallons. So check your local ordinance and follow it. When Helene struck the Carolinas in September 2024, some mountain communities were cut off by washed-out roads. Families with stored fuel could run generators for lighting and food preservation while they waited. Those without found that the nearest operational gas station was hours away. 5 gallons is not a luxury. In the right circumstances, it is the difference between being able to stay or being stranded. Number 3 is a non-electric cooking option with appropriate fuel stored safely in the garage. This surprises people when they see it on a garage-specific list. But the garage is one of the best places to store outdoor cooking equipment because it keeps flammable fuel away from the main living area while remaining adjacent to the outdoor space where that equipment must be used. A blackout eliminates most cooking methods in the average American home. The microwave stops. The electric stove stops. Many gas stoves have electronic ignition systems that require power. And most homeowners do not realize those burners can be lit manually with a long match held to the burner while slowly turning the gas knob. According to USDA food safety guidelines, refrigerated food held above 40 degrees Fahrenheit for more than 4 hours should be considered unsafe. That clock begins the moment the power goes out. A propane camp stove with a modest supply of 1-pound cylinders stored in the garage and used outdoors solves the cooking problem completely. The psychological value of a hot meal during an extended blackout is documented and real. Emergency management research consistently shows that maintaining normal household routines, including mealtimes, significantly reduces stress for adults and anxiety for children. It is not survival mode. It is normalcy during an abnormal situation. The CPSC is unambiguous. Camp stoves, grills, and any propane or charcoal burning device must be used outdoors only. The garage is for storage, not cooking. Store propane cylinders in a shaded, ventilated area and rotate them before they reach their printed expiration date. Number 2 is a portable power station that is kept charged. This is the item that most changes the quality of life during an extended blackout, and the one most people either do not have or have, but allowed to go dead in storage. A portable power station is a large rechargeable battery with AC outlets, USB ports, and DC outputs. It produces no fumes, makes no combustion noise, and can safely operate inside the home. It cannot run an air conditioner or electric range, but it can charge phones and laptops, power CPAP machines, run LED lights and fans, and depending on the unit's capacity, even power a small refrigerator for limited periods. The challenge is maintenance. Most households that own a portable power station charged it once and stored it in the garage. Lithium batteries self-discharge over time. A unit left unattended for a year may be at 15 to 20% capacity when the lights actually go out. This requires a maintenance charging schedule every 2 to 3 months. Many modern units have a storage mode that maintains an optimized charge level automatically. The unit should be stored where it can be found quickly and where its cables are organized and accessible, not buried under seasonal gear. During Winter Storm Uri in February 2021, which stripped electricity from millions of Texas households during days of extreme cold, portable power stations sold out across the state within hours of the first storm warnings. People who already had charged units in their garages kept phones alive, ran small supplemental heaters, and stayed in contact with family. People who went looking for one when the ice was already forming found empty shelves. That is the pattern this item follows in every major blackout. The equipment you need during the outage cannot be found during the outage. It has to be there before it starts. And that brings us to number 1. Number 1 is not a piece of equipment at all. Number 1 is a printed, laminated emergency reference document that lives in a fixed, known location in your garage. This is the item that determines whether everything else on this list functions under stress. When the power goes out, Most people reach for a phone. The phone may or may not have a charge. The internet may or may not be working. Cell service may or may not be available. During the Northeast blackout of August 2003, which cut power to 55 million people across 8 states and 2 Canadian provinces, communication infrastructure failed broadly at exactly the moment households needed it most. During Helene in 2024, mountain communities in western North Carolina went days without cell service or internet simultaneously with losing power. In those hours, the ability to look something up online was simply not possible. A printed, laminated document stored in a known location in the garage requires none of that. It requires a flashlight and the ability to read. It is in your hands when the stress response narrows your thinking and the people around you are looking to you for direction. What belongs on this document is specific to your household, but the framework is consistent. It should include the step-by-step procedure for manually opening your garage door, because the person who needs to do it in the dark may not be the person who watched preparedness videos. It should include the location of your electrical panel and how to reset a tripped breaker, the location of your main water shutoff valve, the location of your natural gas shutoff and the tool required, a written contact list, because a dead phone makes a digital contact list completely inaccessible, the address of the nearest emergency shelter in your county, available through your local emergency management office or FEMA's ready.gov website, and your local NOAA weather radio frequency. It should also include something most families overlook until they desperately need it: the names and dosages of any prescription medications in the household, contact information for any pharmacy or medical provider needed during an extended emergency, and the power requirements of any electrically dependent medical equipment in the home, such as CPAP machines or insulin refrigeration. FEMA publishes specific guidance for households with medical needs, because from the moment a blackout begins, a clock is running on every power-dependent medical situation in the house. The document does not need to be elaborate. 1 or 2 laminated pages in a bright-colored folder that is visible in the beam of a flashlight. The same location every time, so that any adult in the household can retrieve it independently without asking. Here is why this is number 1 above every piece of hardware on this list: a garage with stored fuel, a charged power station, a weather radio, a work lantern, a tested release cord, a surge protector, and a carbon monoxide detector, but no plan. Is a garage full of tools that people use incorrectly and inefficiently under stress. A garage with a clear plan, and even some of those items, is a household that functions. A garage with a clear plan, and all of those items, is a household that experiences the next blackout as an inconvenience rather than a crisis. The families who were prepared when Helene devastated the Carolinas in September 2024, when Ian flooded Southwest Florida in 2022, when Uri froze Texas in 2021, were not naturally calmer people. They were people who had already made the decisions before the emergency arrived. They knew where the document was. They had tested the garage door. They had fuel in a container. Their power station held a charge. When the lights went out, instead of improvising in the dark, they were already doing what they had planned to do. Preparedness is not fear. It is the absence of improvisation at the worst possible moment. Every item on this list can be assembled over time, without significant expense, before any weather forecast mentions your county by name. The garage is the right place to start because it is both the first point of failure in a blackout and the room with the most potential to hold the systems that keep a family stable. If the power went out in your home in the next 10 minutes, what would happen in your garage? What would you find, and how quickly could you find it? That question is worth answering now, while the lights are still on. And once the garage is ready, the next question is what sustains a family when the blackout extends beyond what any garage preparation can carry. What food actually lasts? What most households are quietly getting wrong about their shelf-stable pantry? And what the families who weathered long-term disruptions were stocking before anyone else noticed they should? That is what we are covering next.